Hello, my name is Aaron Scott, and I am a figure photographer. I take photos like this, and this. In today's video, I'm going to break down the behind-the-scenes process of some of the photos I took last month. All this stuff is still a learning experience for me. I'm still figuring it out, so I thought it might be fun to share that process with you. Show some behind the scenes, some brainstorming, a lot of trial and error. It's going to be kind of a longer thing, so I'll make sure to put chapters in the description if you just want to skip to a particular segment. Also, I shoot all my photos on my Sony FX3, and I use my, what lens is this? Okay, it's a 20 to 70 millimeter lens. That's what I shoot my photos on. So if there's an exception to that rule, I'll point it out. I'll also put all the equipment I use in the description, like, as well. So if you want to just copy all of my shit, you can copy all my shit. Please do. But yeah, that's pretty much everything. Enjoy. Okay, so I wanted to recreate that one shot from GT where Goku is standing on the rock with the planet behind him. When it comes to doing recreations like this, I typically don't do exact remakes of shots. I typically do my own take on things. Like, it's not going to be one-to-one with the original, but the goal is to keep enough recognizable elements where you look at my photo and you can see exactly what I'm referencing, you know? For the rock that he's standing on, I decided to use this rock piece diorama that I got from MirageWorks on Instagram a few years back, and just to give the rock a little bit of height, I got a few volumes of bleach, and then to cover the books I got these rocks from Las Vegas diorama just to put in front of the shot. Overall, I like how this setup looks. It creates a nice looking composition on the camera. Real quick pause, because the inspiration for this specific look I'm going for here actually started out as that one shot from The Lion King. The way the shot is framed, it looks very triumphant, like very powerful, and I was looking for something similar here. I wanted my subject to be the smallest thing in frame for this shot. As for the environment, the advantage to having that one rock so close to the camera is because not only does it create depth, but it also makes it so the environment in the foreground takes up like half the screen. But I also want to make sure that the scene is still recognizable, so it's time to add in the background. For this shot, all I did is I pulled up an image of the Dragon Ball Earth that I found on Google. I also added a few lights here just to light the frame a bit better with the background. This image of Goku is instantly recognizable. I think I got the pose mostly correct, and when standing behind the planet like that, it just looks right, you know? Also, side note, whenever I see this shot, I think of Toast Burnt Dark from Instagram, so shout out to that guy. Oh yeah, and I added smoke with the smoke machine thing I have. It's made by Ulanzi, I believe. I'll put it on screen now. I'll be using this thing a lot in this video. And this is how the shot turned out before editing. I'll put my camera settings on screen now. For all the shots you see in this video, I do color correct them in Lightroom. I also did this mask in Lightroom of the moon just to turn the exposure down a little bit. But yeah, here's the final result, and overall, I'm pretty happy with this. The only thing I wish I did a bit differently is I wish I got closer colors to the original, like, picture, because when it comes to getting the aesthetic of a lot of old animated things down, I always seem to struggle. Maybe it's because my whites are too bright or the backgrounds are blurred, and it could even just be it looks off because it's not cel shaded, but I run into this a lot where I want to get this exact look down right, but I can't copy the aesthetic perfectly. And like, obviously, I can't get it exact because one is a photograph of something that exists in real life, and the other is something somebody drew for an animation. But I need to find a way to adapt that look a bit better into my photography, whether it be how I shoot it or how I set it up or something in post. But overall, I am still pretty happy with how this final product turned out. Hey, this Revoltech Eren is pretty cool. He's just one of those figures that, like, posing him feels like I'm drinking a fine wine, except for when the fucking faceplate falls off. That sucks. That is terrible. I have seen a lot of cool photography with this guy already, but I haven't seen too many shots with, like, a forest, kind of like where a lot of Season 2 took place. So here's the setup. We got mountains, we got trees, we got grass, we got the figure. I got, like, a million of these little trees that just kind of plug into the ground that I'm using. The ground is foam. The hill is also made of foam. Like 90% of my dioramas are just foam. So I pretty much just added a bunch of these trees and made a whole forest. I decided to repose the boy a little bit, and I snagged this awesome sky background from the show that I got on Google Images. It just looks very nice back there. Then for lighting, I added these 4 key lights. Decently basic lighting setup on this guy. I also chucked one of these little trees on a rock and another under his foot, like he's crushing it, just adding a bit of narrative to the photo. Oh, and for this shot in particular, I like had to add smoke. Like, it's just too perfect with like the Titan steam. So here's what we're looking at, like straight out of the camera. As far as Lightroom went, I wanted something very heavy contrast. I feel like it took me forever to realize this, but shots with a lot of contrast where the subject is very bright, those are the type of shots that look really distinct. The way that the smoke looks on the figure, it's like pure white. It looks awesome. I don't know why I never realized that, but you can just use contrast to make specific parts of your shot stand out. Like, that's actually the whole point. I don't know why. I've been using it wrong this entire time. Also, I had to copy 86 reviews. He had this really good idea to Photoshop in a little scout with Eren, so I decided to do something similar. I got this little PNG. So shout out to him. Great photo, great idea, and also great reviews. I actually do love watching his videos. Like, whenever I get a new import in, I look up if he has a review of it just to make sure like I'm taking everything out of the box with care and I'm not just gonna break the thing out of the box. But yeah, this is the final product. I really love how this turned out. I can't lie, I'm very happy with this one. I do kind of wish I made the clouds in the sky a bit more visible. And looking back, the mountains in the background sort of just look not real. I think I should have lit those a bit better. I think one day I'm gonna pick up those Dioflex project buildings I've been seeing people post on Instagram, because those look really good. Would be cool for some more AOT photos, especially whenever Reiner comes out. And I honestly can't wait for more AOT Revoltechs. Like, this guy is just really fun to mess with and photograph. Definitely do try to get him if you can. Here's the photo. I got Hatsune Miku playing guitar in a very empty house. So it's time for some interior decorating. I got a bunch of little props and furniture and things to put inside later. First things first though, let's get the whole thing in frame here. I'm gonna use my 20 to 70mm lens zoomed all the way out just to get the whole room. This is a very nice diorama, by the way. It's made of real wood. For the outside, I have this grass rug I got cut at Home Depot forever ago. Fun fact, you can actually just go in and ask for a 20-inch square or whatever you want and they will chop it for you. Just to cover the outside a tad, I added these little sliders to the door, and I'm liking this setup. I think this looks good so far. To start decorating, I got this little shelf with some stuff on it. Then for the desk and computer, do y'all think Miku knows how to use FL? The little book I added here is from a Rukia figure from Bleach.
Any questions before I go on?
First of all, why do your drawings suck so bad?
Then I added this second shelf on the other side of the room with the Fooly Cooly guitar. I'm kind of going for like a home studio type of thing for this. I chucked these bags on the ground, and then I put this desk here with some snacks on it. And honestly, this shot really reminds me of this old Steins Gate photo I did for October last year, just with all the props. So I decided to just keep going. For some more props, I got this copy of Evil Dead for the Xbox, a stand disc, and an old phone. I just went on to keep adding stuff, just like a bunch of random things, whatever I could do to really liven up the scene. I even added this cat, which I sometimes do hide this specific cat in a lot of my photos. I find that adding little animals and things brings a lot of life to whatever shot I'm working on, and I've been trying to do that more this year. I want my pictures to feel more alive looking. Like, I want it to look like Miku actually lives in this house. Time for some lighting, and wow, that's dark. For the background, I was initially thinking a sunset, so I added some very harsh lights behind the window and above the figure, and also this key light here to light the scene a bit better. And at this point, I feel like it's worth saying that I have no idea what the fuck I am doing right now. I am by no means an expert on anything, especially not lighting, so I just kind of throw shit at the wall until something sticks. And for this shot, it took a while before anything stuck. And here's what it looks like out of the camera. You know, okay, this isn't bad, but like, I feel like something is wrong about it, and I think it's the aesthetics. I think it just doesn't look good. The sunset, the dim lighting, and the warm colors, it just doesn't match the feeling that the idea for this photo has in my head. I want to go for something like really bright with the saturated colors. I'm thinking less orange and more pinks and blues, kind of. I want to go for something more soft and kind of aired out, if that makes sense. Like something more relaxing to look at, because I feel like the oranges are just like really harsh and the colors are just too aggressive. So I took a break, and after a few hours of not working on this, I came back with this bright ass blue sky and a bunch of super harsh whites. Brighter lights. I also lowered my aperture to 8 and raised my ISO to 200, and I put my shutter speed at 120. It gives it a brighter, softer look, which is exactly what I was going for. And I kind of knew when I was going into redoing this that a lot of the aesthetic for this shot would find its footing in post when I edit it in Lightroom. I added these two masks, one to make the sky really bright and one to make the grass outside brighter as well. Looking back, maybe the photo could have benefited from like less brightness on the sky, so that way you could see the blue a bit better, but I don't know, the look I was going for is I wanted the outside to have this almost ethereal looking brightness to it. Also, I kind kind of like having the only blue in the shot be on the figure. I think it makes the figure pop out more against the environment. It kind of makes Miku like shine more in this heavenly brightness that she's being engulfed in. Editing the colors in post definitely pieced this shot together to look just how I wanted it to. Overall, it was kind of a headache just creatively coming up with how this shot needed to look, but I am super happy with the final product. It ended up being one of my favorites I did all month. Okay, so time for an actually very simple one. I have this Made in Abyss Nendoroid just sitting here with the log. The goal is going to be to use this waterfall diorama that I've had for a few years, but I don't think I've actually ever used it in a photo. And Made in Abyss has those cool-ass landscapes with waterfalls and cliffs and things, and I figured I'd go for something kind of like that. So here's the setup. I got the waterfall in frame with like her standing by that in the log, and in the background is just an actual screenshot from the show I pulled up on the TV. Lighting. So, okay, very basic, just two lights here, kind of lit harshly on the figure. Hey look, it's Fear and Hunger. Anyway, I made the lights more warm and I balanced this one overhead light, which is lighting up the waterfall. That the whole point of this is just to illuminate the waterfall. Also, for the water itself, I made it out of plastic wrap again. Overall, I really like the look of this. It's like she's like looking up out of the abyss from like down below. I quite fuck with how that turned out. In Lightroom, I applied a bunch of masks. One here to make the waterfall pop a bit more. One on the left side to make sure the left half of the image is a bit warmer. One that I honestly don't think does anything. And one for the sky on the right side to make it look like she's looking up at the sun at the top of the abyss or something like that to make it look like there's something glowing up there for her to be looking up at. Honestly, not my most complicated shot, but I really like how it turned out. And it was very fun to color correct in Lightroom. I went for kind of a colder look to the photo. I really do love how all the environments look in Made in Abyss. I gotta do more of these in the future and get better at adapting those environments into my photography. I want to do something with like the upside down forest as well as like that snowy place from the movie. I think those are both really cool locations. Okay, while I have the log and stuff out, I wanted to do something with SHF Frieren, and honestly, this is one of those shots that, looking back, it's kind of frustrating because I don't really like how this one turned out, and I know exactly what I could have done better. Like, I already know, at some point in the future, I'm gonna remake the photo that I'm about to show you the process of taking, so it feels kind of pointless. It's kind of annoying that I posted this one. So, to start, I have her just sitting on this log, reading a book, and I actually quite like just this visual on its own. I think it looks nice. I got the camera set up. I decided to put the waterfall in the back again, and this is actually looking pretty good so far. I also put these trees in the front, add some depth. It looks kind of nice. I put this little bird here, also this cat. Also, I added this extra book here just for some basic narrative, like she's like reading through a bunch of books or something and she has like a pile. I added some more logs and hills and stuff to the background. I think I did too much. Here's the thing. I think the issue with this photo is I just added way too many things. Like, there are some cool finer details, but they don't really get to shine when you look at the shot as a whole. And the shot also kind of went through an identity crisis with the background. Like, I kept changing the color and I don't know, it was just a mess. If we're being real, I think this photo just lacks any sort of identity. Usually I approach my photos with like a sense of minimalism and I'm very careful. Like, I try to cut back things that aren't necessary to the main idea of the photo. But here, I think I just kind of overdid everything. Also, to make matters a little bit worse, the shot is just kind of boring. Like, the composition's boring, the lighting's boring, and overall the whole thing just feels forgettable to me. Like, usually when I shoot a photo like this, I'll think about it all day. But this photo I just kind of forgot about. Like, I'm not huge on this one. I don't really like this photo if you can't tell. But on the bright side, I do know what to do better next time, which learning from my mistakes is the whole reason why I try to be critical of my own work. So that's awesome. When you really think about it, there's no reason to not shoot photos, because like, if you shoot photos and they look good, then that's awesome, but if they look bad, then you can learn from them, you know? I suppose there's like a worst case scenario where they look bad, but you don't know what you're doing wrong. But that's what the internet's for. I feel like when I first started out taking photos, I kind of had this bias toward myself. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect, where when you're inexperienced at something, you overestimate yourself. And I definitely think that's real, at least for me. I feel like way more of a novice now that I know my depth way more than when I first started out. And listening to people who had more experience than me on the internet and hearing what their criticisms of my work were really helped me improve. So try to have a teachable spirit and genuinely improve. Apply other people's criticisms. Like, if you see somebody take photos and you want to take photos like that, ask them how they do things, and ask them what they think of your work and what you can improve on. And then apply that criticism to what you're doing, and just make each photo better than the last one. Just keep on practicing, keep on trying, and you will get better at it. I promise.
Let's all
Serial Experiments Lain is a kind of fucked up show about the internet, God, computers, computers being God, and this girl who has no friends, who is also a computer, and is also God. I think it's very interesting, it's very weird, I quite like it though. And in the big 2025, technology has progressed to the point where it now has a Nendoroid. Personally, I'm not too big on Nendoroids, but I do really like Lain. A lot of this show oftentimes brings up this idea that Lain is wired, and she's in the computer more than she's real. She's like hyper real, if you will. So here's the idea. I have this old computer that I built a few years back that I want to use as an environment for this photo. Also, please don't pick on me. Yes, I used an Intel stock cooler. I'm sorry, okay? I decided to add some more cords and things, and that's a 3DS charger right there. I added this old camera I have to fill some space at the top of the frame and just cover the shot from head to toe in like stuff, like random technology and stuff. Very messy, kind of unsettling, very wired. One of those shots that I had this idea for in my head way back whenever this thing got announced, and it was just very easy to bring to life by the time I actually got the figure in hand. Like, I've just thought about it enough where it wasn't too hard to like make this photo real. I decided to shoot at f11 just because I wanted to get all the wires and stuff to be visible, and I also didn't want the photo to come out too soft. Like, even though I have Lain in focus, I want her to blend into the rest of the background like she's being buried in wires and metal and shit, and I wanted a bunch of details to cut through, so I even made sure to bump up the clarity all the way in Lightroom. Overall, I love how this shot came out. I like this one a lot. Also very happy to have something from Lain in my collection. Thank God the internet brought this piece of media back into relevancy, if nothing else, just to spawn this Nendoroid. Thank you very much, Mr. Good Smile. I always thought it was kind of cool how Piccolo was just doing something, like he was just standing on something big, or he was meditating in a forest somewhere. I wanted to do this photo of him floating and meditating in like a forest type of area with a sunset and a river in front of him. So to start, I brought back the grass from earlier, and I got Piccolo on a stand meditating. I added some trees and stuff, and I also hid the stand with his cape in the back, and that actually worked out pretty well. As for adding water, it's pretty easy. I just used this cellophane wrap in blue that I got like 2 years ago when Super Saiyan 63 told me to buy them. Shout out Tankless Pit 2748, shout out Diego Cruz, Super Saiyan 63, whatever you want to call him. That guy is the GOAT, okay? I used to ask him all the time how to do this or that, and he would always have a good answer for me, and it was always a very detailed answer. So shout out to that guy. He's a huge inspiration to me. He's a good friend, and he's just helped me out a lot in my journey as a photographer. I love you, Tankless Pit. Typically, I will also add like cotton balls or plastic wrap to the water, and that'll make it look like the water is layered and it's splashing and it's not just flat plastic. For this shot, I got the lens right up here on the water, and I like how that looks on the camera screen. Also added this little like thing. I don't know what it's called, but it's this little post. It's from a 78 points diorama though. Then I added this sunset background and 3 key lights, also 1 overhead light, and that looks pretty good. Here's how it looks fresh out of the camera, and I also photoshopped 1 eye shut. I know it's not my best work, but I just feel it's kind of essential to the shot. Looking back, I am a little bit miffed about the final product. I think this could have been better if I put more effort into the setup here. I think this shot could have benefited from like more trees and kind of just like a whole forest for him to sit in. But I do like the colors here, and I think I hid the stand pretty well, and the water looks nice. So overall, I do like it, but I won't lie, I almost did scrap this one. Like, I was very close to doing that, because I feel like I'm going to remake this shot at some point in the future, and it's just going to look way better than the one I did here. So I guess we'll see. Yo, this Mafex Tobey is very good. This is just one of those figures that is like, I pick it up and I mess with it and it's just excellent. He's just like very fun to pose, though I do think the proportions are a little off, especially after seeing some mods online. It really highlights how off parts of him look. I'll probably look into doing some of those mods eventually. But still, like, just look at him on this building here. Iconic. He's kind of just a Mafex Spider-Man, but it's Tobey Maguire, and that's pretty much exactly what I wanted. Okay, so here's the shot, sitting atop top of the building with this light to his left as the sun. Gonna be a vertical shot with the building taking up most of the frame, giving it a sense of like height, like he's like looking down. I was setting up to do an admittedly pretty basic shot here when I had a really good idea. I decided to put this stack of newspapers here, and then I was like, wait, I have a single newspaper prop with text talking about like Doc Ock or some shit. Like, I can use that. So I set it up like it's flying at the camera, like you can read it. It's kind of like those old movie newspaper transitions. One photographer whose work I quite like is Cap Lives on Instagram, and his photos, they're really good at telling a story. Like, they all look like they're ripped straight out of a comic book or a movie, and it's because there's like a greater context here. These photos have a narrative to them. It's not just a photo of a character. The character is in a world, and there's a story here, and there's things that they're doing. Like, there's a narrative to his photos that I really like, and I wanted to do something similar here. That was the main inspiration behind this. By adding this newspaper here, it answers questions like, why is he on top of the building? Well, obviously he's looking for Doc Ock. And like, oh, well, why is he looking down the building? Well, he's looking at the newspaper flying by. And when you answer questions like that, it builds a story around your photo. That creates context. Anyway, back to the shot that we're working on. When I think of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, I think of oranges and golds, probably because of that original final swing scene, but there's also a lot of posters and other material that use that color palette. So for this shot, I went with an orange sunset background, as well as some warm colored lights and things around the building, nothing too complicated. Oh, I also added birds to my sky background in Photoshop while I was still shooting. One more thing, when I shot the picture, I made sure to get a version where Spidey was in focus and one with the newspaper in focus. I did experiment with focus stacking these two, but I ultimately decided on just having two different slides for different focuses. I've done stuff like this before, and I think it creates a cool level of like interactivity when the viewer can switch between two photos in a post to get different parts of the scene. I think that's always pretty interesting to do. Fresh out of the camera, this already looked pretty nice. My main job in Lightroom was just making things brighter, more contrast. But yeah, I like this. Heavy colors and the newspaper flying at the camera has that kind of campy vibe that the old Spider-Man movies had, which is what I wanted. Maybe if I did reshoot this, I would make it so that the newspaper is like more centered in frame, so it's like it's more focused on that, because that is the real draw of this photo. But I mean, I still like this. This composition also works. Just if I was to redo it with that in mind, maybe it would be different. Like, the newspaper is sort of a product of, I had an idea for this photo and then it changed into a better idea while I was shooting it. So if I redid it, it would look different, but I don't hate this one. I actually like how this looks as well. So yeah, shout out to Cap Lives, big inspiration. I love his photos, very good at storytelling, and I tried to do something similar with this, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I've always loved the look of Unlimited Blade Works. It's just a really badass looking ability. It's a desert with gears and swords and a pretty sky and a banger soundtrack as well. This shit got me tearing up. Oh, and he activates it with a poem. Poetry is badass. Okay, so for any of my shots that use a desert or sand, I always use play sand because it looks good enough and is very easy to clean up. Let's start by pounding this shit and then putting the figure here just to get the frame of the shot in mind, and this is already looking pretty good. Then I added the rest of the sand in the bag to the shot, and with some movie magic perspective, I was able to make a pretty flat looking landscape without needing to make a whole area of just sand. You know, I always try to trick these big environments using perspective. The more minimal the setup is, I think the better. I'm actually basing this particular shot off of this one piece of art I saw on Twitter, just because I like how the two swords are centered like that. And this stupid fraud keeps falling over. Guy who loses to Lancer, by the way. Look at these swords. Dude, I fucking love swords. Yeah, that is looking pretty good. I pretty much just stuck them in the little pieces of sand. Now, I actually have done a shot like this before. In fact, this is the old version. It's from 2023. It's one of my favorite pictures from that time. The difference is, though, like, that one is kind of like a parody type of shot with a bunch of random references and things. It's not like an actual recreation of what this thing looks like. It's kind of a goof, but nonetheless, it does take me back a bit to this type of shot again. Like, my photos used to be so much more messy believe it or not. Anyway, back to the shot that we're working on today. I just placed a bunch of swords from random figures I had in the ground, and then I pulled up this picture on my monitor of Unlimited Blade Works' like sky and gears. By the way, this is actually a very wide shot, like specifically 24 millimeters apparently. This is the whole reason why I use the TV for the background, because I am indeed using the entire 65 inches of screen for the sky. Like the entire thing is being used for this. I also added these rocks to the background just to cover up the black bar at the bottom of the TV a little bit. Here's what the lighting setup looks like. Just a bunch of rectangle Ulanzi lights and some overhead lights as well pointed away from the monitor to prevent reflection. Also, I wanted to make sure that there were some shadows on the sand like facing toward the camera. I just thought that would be a neat look. Also, Unlimited Blade Works is typically depicted with a lot of smoke and ashes flying around, so I had to bring back out the smoke machine to get that look. And here's how it came out the camera. The camera settings I used were pretty specific this time. I shot at f14, which is pretty high, but I wanted it to be very sharp. I also shot at 100 ISO and fucking 0.6 shutter speed to accommodate the low aperture. High aperture just makes everything dark. Low shutter speed just makes everything bright. I could have gone for a higher ISO instead to brighten things up, but that would create a lot of noise, and I already knew I was going to be denoising a lot anyway in Lightroom because I wanted a lot of contrast and sharpness. So I decided to keep it at 100 ISO just so it doesn't end up being a grainy mess by the end of the editing process. If anything, I think the low shutter speed gave the smoke kind of a cool blur to it, but I do really love the look of this. It's one of my favorite characters and abilities, and it's just very satisfying to take a photo like this, you know? Oh, I also did the Shiro version while I had this set up, and I also had to adjust the crop a bit to straighten it because I could not get Shiro to stand straight for the life of me. Oh yeah, and I also masked the sky on both of these just to make it pop out a bit more. But yeah, I'm pretty proud of how both of these turned out. Every time I look at them, the OST just starts playing in my head. Okay, so I decided to do another Mafex Tobey picture. I wanted to take some inspiration from that one poster of him climbing that sticks out to me. I wanted to make it more square and not on a reflective building, but I like how that visual looks. For the building, I'm going to be using this diorama from 78 points lying on the ground to get that angle like he's like climbing up toward the camera kind of. And like this already looks awesome. Like it just has that feel to it. I was looking for, I can hear that motif playing in my head. Motifs are audio thing, right? Can a motif be used in music? A motif in music is a solid piece of music that contains some type of thematic or structural. Okay, yeah, okay, that is what was the right word. I added some decorations with some trash in an electrical box and part of a building, and I got very close up with the camera. I was going to do an angle that was further away, zoomed in, but I decided that a wider shot would look nicer for this. This shot was surprisingly very easy to light, just a couple key lights near the quote-unquote ground. I also had this idea to use a metal stand to make this part of a building close up to the camera, like he's like climbing into a building that's like falling apart. Then the shot went through a weird phase where I experimented with like random rubble and shit. But after shooting the photo, I looked at it on my computer and I realized like this is just too much shit going on. It's very messy. It looks like a soup of just concrete. Not enough focus on like what's actually interesting. I think the shot lacks identity. I decided to strip back whatever random details I didn't think were necessary and also switch to a 1x1 square because for some reason I experimented with 4x3. So by making it 1x1, it's like he fills the entire frame. This is one of those pictures that once I was able to critique what didn't work and I removed some things, it helped me realize what ideas I actually liked and wanted to keep working with. Like a lot of the random diorama pieces were just unnecessary and just took away from the subject. Cropping to a 1x1 square helped me emphasize the subject because the 4x3 ratio from before put too much emphasis on the environment instead of the cool pose where he's like reaching into the camera. Like I think that's a much cooler part of the photo. I also raised my aperture just to get more in focus. I thought it looked kind of soft after I removed some stuff, so this was my way of countering that. Honestly, in removing and changing things that didn't work, I found the identity of the photo that I was looking for, and now I quite like how this came out a lot. Even the color correction was really fun. I adore how the reds and purples look here. I even masked the lenses to give them a nicer white. There's also a very rare time when shooting a figure makes me want to continue doing more stuff with that figure right afterwards. Usually I try to switch it up for variety's sake, but this guy is just really fun to photograph. I don't know. Okay, I'm hopping back over to the Canon for this one. I just want to use the wide lens. SHF Aki from Chainsawman, a good enough figure. Look at this angle. Like, no, look at this shit, dude. I don't even have the tripod legs on the ground. It's just staying there, balancing. It is a pretty cool angle though. I do like the look of this. Also, to get the figure so close to the lens with the setup like this, I raised the ground with a riser, and because of that, everything is off balance, and he fell many times while I shot this. It was very annoying to make this photograph, but we persevere. Anyway, then I decided to add these two goofballs. I wanted to go for a fun composition with all three characters in focus, Aki being the closest to the camera, with Power and Denji a bit further back, but in the composition, like close enough where they all sort of make one shape at the center of the screen here. Kind of the idea of this shot is just excess, over-the-top lighting with a bunch of shit in the environment, as well as just three whole figures on screen from above with two walls and a floor in frame. Quite the fucking Starbucks order, like. I know earlier in the video, I struggled with excess when it came to the Tobey and Frieren shots, just having too much stuff going on in them. I think the issue when I was taking those photos was those photos didn't have an identity yet, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted them to look like while I was shooting them, and that just led to a mess of random ideas and things across the image. But this time I'm going into this shot with one main idea, making up the picture, the composition and framing, very wide background, three subjects all clustered together, yada yada. You already heard me explain the whole. Okay, so I got all three in here. Nice little family photo. Gotta give Aki his smoke. I think this is from a Mezco Constantine that Brand sold me off the top of my head. Leaning all the way in, and I love this angle already. It really does just look kind of great. Added these 78 points buildings in the background. I'm filling every little crevice of this shot with just trash and garbage. Like I said earlier, the identity of this shot is excess, but instead of being a mess of random things just thrown around, I'm going to be using the framing of the shot as a guideline for where things go. Like, okay, an example could be there's a bit of dead space in the corner up here, so I filled it with a cat on a trash can, and that makes the photo just more interesting to look at, and it fits with the rest of the scene because, like, if I didn't fill that in, the photo would look uneven because it's just like, why is nothing happening in that corner of the frame? Some fun red and green lights for the background, and fucking hell, this guy. I ended up raising this light with a counter to light the subject a bit better. I changed the red light to pink, it makes it a bit more fun looking, and honestly, this whole shot was just kind of fun looking. Now, it's time to piece it together a bit. I focus stacked 2 takes in Photoshop, and yeah, this is probably the best example of a wide-angle photograph I did this month. I think I captured the feel of, like, specifically the colored version of the Chainsaw Man manga. It has these absurd palettes for the colors they use. It was fun to emulate that a bit with the lighting. And there's just something cool to me about a photo with so many details that are so close and far away from the camera. I think I did a good job of making it all harmonious. Okay, so I was talking to my good friends Artistic Toaster and Rayashi 2099, and they mentioned that they were a part of this Anime Day collab, and honestly, I don't think that's like a government-recognized holiday, I'm not gonna lie. Pretty much this one photographer, named The Old Toy Pic, who takes very lovely photos by the way, puts together these collabs with a bunch of other photographers in the community. In this particular collab, each photographer would represent a different TV show or movie, and also apparently Persona 3 the video game as well. Toaster was mentioning to me that all the good options were already taken, so I asked if Akira was taken. Akira is a really iconic piece of media, and it doesn't have a whole ton of figures except like, what, the Raw from a million years ago? Until recently, Poor Toys made this Kaneda, and I was thinking to myself, there's no way anyone else bought this fucking figure except for me. And I was right. Like, they straight up posted they were done making Akira figures because nobody bought this shit, which is really unfortunate because they did a great job, but I think it's just funny because people say this a lot, like, oh, if this figure doesn't sell well enough, they won't make any more. And it's like, it's just funny to see a company come out and be like, yeah, that's what happened. And I mean, like, it does suck because he is really good. Like, it's very nice to have something 1/12 from Akira to go with the McFarlane Toys bike that I have. Like, there is a Kaneda that goes with that bike, but it's terrible. Don't even think about it. If you're gonna get a Kaneda 1/12 figure, get this one. It's way better. Anyway, shout out to these two guys because not only did they put me onto this collab, but Ray also helped me get involved for the Akira shot shot in this collab, so thank you both of you. Thank you, Rei. You're my favorite photographer slash Persona player on the planet. So for the shot, I wanted to make something very iconic. I had a couple ideas. I was thinking about maybe doing the slide, but I ultimately decided on recreating that one famous poster from the movie. So I started by grabbing this big white plastic piece that just so happened to be the perfect size for my setup. Then I posed Kaneda walking up to the bike, and this already has me happy. Like, this just is so instantly recognizable looking at it on my desk here. This is just awesome. Like I said, I'm just glad they made this guy, if nothing else, just so I can put him with the bike. Here's what it looks like on the camera, and one issue I immediately ran into is I want to get the framing of exactly how far he is from the bike correct. Spacing is really important at this step because the plan is to shoot this in 1x1 and then just extend it in Photoshop and add all the details of the actual poster later on. So the main goal right now is to just get how far he is from the bike correct. So the method I used to get the spacing correct is I pretty much just pulled up the poster in Photoshop and I cropped it to be a square, like the same photo I'm taking right now on the camera. And then I pulled up a 3x3 grid in Photoshop to see what parts of the frame need to line up with what parts of that 3x3 grid. And then I turned grid lines on my camera and I synced it up. So that way, like, the same parts of the 3x3 grid in Photoshop on the actual poster matched up with the photo I was shooting on my camera. It is kind of tricky because the bike isn't the size that it is in the poster, partially because of scale, and also I think partially because the poster is very stylized. But yeah, pretty much I just turned grid lines on my camera and I matched it up to how those grid lines would look over the actual poster. It really was, it's pretty simple, but it just took a lot of thinking to like figure out how I was gonna do that. Also pretty basic lighting setup. I just want everything to be super bright. I did two shots, one with the bike in focus and one with the figure in focus, and I stacked them in Photoshop. I'll do a tutorial on that later in the video on how to focus stack stuff that I'm just gonna come back to that because there's a lot of other stuff I want to talk about in this segment. Okay, so the first step in editing was to align the photo with the original poster and then extend the length, extend like the height of it to match the aspect ratio of the original poster. Then I put the original poster on top and I erased parts of it so that way I could get the blue gradient and the crack in the road for my picture. Then I went and found the same logo that I wanted to use on Google and I ended up just sizing it to match. I spent a good amount of time just cleaning up things, especially the blue gradient. I spent a lot of time correcting that to fit better. Like, the recording of me editing this is like 50 minutes long. Also, color correcting is something I did a number of times while working on this. I just kept correcting the colors as I went. So I guess what I'll do is I'll just go through each new edit of this photo that I have saved on my computer. Here's the initial focus stacked picture. Then I cropped it. Then I color corrected it. I can't find the Lightroom project, but just know I masked the background, made it very white, and made everything else super saturated because I really wanted that nice candy red color. Then on screen, I'll go through all the Photoshop edits, just cleaning it up. I made a lot of corrections during these as well, just trying to get the look right. Nothing too complicated though. Just very saturated colors, a lot of contrast, very white whites, some clarity. And here is the final product of the picture. I am so happy with how this turned out. This is exactly what I was going for. It's one of those shots that when I sent it around, people didn't even realize it was a photograph at first. They thought it was literally just the poster, which means I did my job correctly. But yeah, I love how this final product turned out. Shout out to Rei and Toast for getting me into this collab and egging me to do this, and also big shout out to the old Toy Pick for letting me join last minute. It was very last minute, but I really love the collabs he does with the community. And also go check out all three of their Instagram pages. They're all very talented photographers. And also go check out everyone else who was involved in the collab. They all took wonderful photos as well. But yeah, love this shot. Very grateful for the opportunity. Rest in peace to the Akira line from Port Toys. Just know, if nobody else bought this thing, okay, I bought this thing. I did, okay? I did photos with it, and I'm happy with it. Sorry, I'm sorry that the line is dead. Okay, I didn't do this next shot because of the announcement, but it did match pretty well timing-wise. I know that there's a lot of JoJo fans out there that really like to just glaze SBR and talk about how good it is, but that's exactly what I'm about to do right now. SBR is awesome. Like, I feel like you cannot like the rest of JoJo's and still think, Steel Ball Run is pretty good. The SBR manga is my favorite piece of JoJo media, and honestly, it's probably one of my favorite manga in general. It's probably in that, like, top 10. It's just very good. In fact, it's so good that it actually has good figures, unlike the rest of JoJo's, which has... These are the Medico's Super Action Statue SAS. SAS are generally notorious for being pretty dated. Thousands of years of human evolution led to SAS Kenshiro having the shoulder joints from a Revoltech that would come out in like 2010. Hopefully, SHF keeps working on making those JoJo figures that are good on release, because like they look pretty rough right now, but I'm hopeful. I think only time will tell here. I am just so sick of Medicos having this license, man. Like, okay, this figure mold is from 2009, and it got re-released in 2023. This shit is older than a lot of the people in my Instagram DM requests. Dragon Ball people think the fact we don't have a 3.0 base Goku means that we're starving, but this is true starvation. Anyway, I got Johnny and Gyro with some rocks and a horse that came from, I think Figma Erwin comes with this horse. I added some lights around, just make the environment and subject look pretty. It's gonna be sunset, so I want to cast some shadows. Also, look at this beautiful sky I found in Google Images. The goal is going to be to make that the coolest thing in frame here. Let's kill the lights, just make sure it looks like it's a sunset, and I like how that looks. That's honestly kind of perfect. I also took 2 shots so I can focus stack them later. Okay, so focus stacking is very easy. Here's a quick tutorial. So here's my 2 photos you can see here on the bottom right. I have one with Gyro in focus and one with Johnny in focus. And the goal is going to be to make one cohesive images with both guys in focus here. So you're gonna hold the control key on your keyboard, and you're gonna click on both of your images in your bottom right here. Once you have them both selected, right click and click rasterize layers real quick. And then come all the way up to the top left and click edit. Then just go on down to auto align layers. What you can do from here is you can just click auto and click OK. And it's going to create these borders where there's not a matchup, because even though these photos look almost identical, they are a little bit differently, right? Like I didn't shoot the exact same photo twice. Like my hand moved a bit when I clicked the shutter button the second time. So what this does is it makes them actually just stack perfect. So like an example of this is like if I come over to my eraser tool and I just start erasing shit, it's like, whoa, these actually blend excellently. You see what I mean? But we're not going to do that. There's actually like a way better way of doing that. That can work sometimes. Like this works. It just looks kind of weird, you know? But what we're going to be doing is we're going to reselect both of our layers here. Come back up to edit, and we're going to go auto blend layers and click stack image and just click OK. And now we wait. Also, I just realized it, and now this is gonna piss me off. His foot is not on the rock perfectly. That is annoying the shit out of me now that I know. Now that I realize that, it's actually driving me nuts. That is so bad. Anyways, in other news, look at that. All I did was click like 2 buttons, and boom, I focus stacked it. I blended these 2 images into one final creation here. And you can do some pretty crazy things with this. Like, here's an image I took last year. And for this shot, I had to stack all of these in Photoshop to get this. So you can do some pretty absurd focus stacks if you really want to get a bunch of subjects in frame. You could totally do that. So just to summarize what we do, we select both layers, go to rasterize, go to edit, go to auto align, click OK. We go to edit, we go to auto blend layers, we stack images, give it a sec. And boom, it's literally that easy. You could do it. I just did it in like 5 seconds. It is so simple. I will show my Lightroom settings in a second, but I actually use 2 masks here I want to show. One to make the subject and the environment darker, and the other one to make the background brighter. Oh, and I actually did this whole extra project in Lightroom literally just to denoise this crusty ass background. But yeah, after I was able to crop this and make various other edits and things, I do really like how this shot turned out. A few years back, I did a shot of these 2, and I honestly do still like how that one looks. Honestly, I think the composition is more interesting on that older one, but the newer one has a more interesting sky, and I like that he's on a horse. It makes it just a bit more cool to look at, I guess. It's still very grainy, but I don't know. I think I'll lose what I like about this shot if I denoise it anymore, you know? Maybe I kind of like the grime. Like, there's something about a photo that looks very crusty, that there's a certain appeal there. Like, not in too much noise, but in a healthy amount in this case, I guess. But yeah, I like this shot. It was fun photographing a SAS again. So over the last month, I ended up playing through the original Tsukihime visual novel. It's pretty cool. I ended up buying the Arc Figma off of Brand Too Easy. The goal is to recreate the first ending of the game. It's got this beautiful sunset background with the window and everything. Okay, first step is going to be cleaning off the windows on this diorama because they're disgusting. And putting the figure in, it's already kind of looking like what I want, but I feel like I'm going to need to add more details because the original art is very basic. I might have to draw from like the remake and also put my own spin on this, but we'll see. First things first, I want to add curtains, so I chopped up these extra like actual curtains I had into a smaller shape and I put those on the window. I want to make it look like a classroom, but I don't actually have any school desks or anything, so this table is gonna have to do, and you know, after putting it on a stand, that kind of works actually. I added some more details and things, just trying to liven up the room. I also adjusted the angle a bit, made it wider so you can see more of the room. Next, for lighting, so I got this big white light as my sun. I added this other light on the side, as well as this other light above, and I think that looks pretty good. I also turned the figure and did another take with the smiling face. I tried to recreate the sprite from the game. It doesn't really look like what I was trying to do, but I still like it. And so here's what we came up with. I definitely took a lot of creative liberties with like the set design in this one, but when it came to editing in Lightroom, I wanted to make sure I still got the very vibrant oranges and red from the original art. So I used a few different masks. First of all, we have this gradient that excludes the subject, just making the background a bit darker. I also have this one that makes the background more orange without affecting the subject. These are specifically different because one of them is a gradient and the other one is just the entire thing. Overall, I think this turned out pretty good. I adapted the beautiful warm colors well, I think. I also made this version in Photoshop of like what it looks like in the game when there's text on screen. One of these layers is just the moon dialogue symbol. It's literally just a crescent shape in blue. One of these is the text. Here's the font that I used. And then the last two just darken the picture for the text to go over top of it. Aesthetically, I think I nailed this. And when I put all three of these pictures together, it makes for a very nice 3-slide post on the Instagram. Okay, so I have this pretty cool kit bash of SAS Kaneki with the Jazzwares Kaneki. This video is actually sponsored by fellow cabinet member Akira. Thank you for sending me this fodder and making this kit bash possible. For this particular shot, I'm gonna go back to my Canon camera, just because I want to use my 10 to 18mm lens and get everything in frame. I love shooting photos on my Sony, but for some shots there's specific lenses I want to use that I have for my Canon, so I switch between them. Just looking at this shot so far, I think the wide-angle lens is doing a great job of showing off just like how cool this looks. I added this extra floor to the back to cover up the white bottom. I still have it from the Akira shot. Ignore how fucking dirty my camera screen is. Dear God, why the fuck? What was I doing when I shot this? Like, I'm looking back at the video now. Just wipe it, man. Just use a paper towel and wipe that shit down, bro. Anyways, here's an unhinged lighting setup. I have an LED being held onto the camera with a skyscraper. Also, I decided to add this red light overhead, just to get like a bit more aura to the shot. And you know, speaking of aura and hype moments, I had to add the smoke machine. I just, you know, I had to, man. And here's how the shot turned out in the camera. I really like how this one looks, though I think he's posed a little bit weirdly. I think if I posed his left hand different, maybe closer to the camera, it'd look a bit better. Right now, it kind of looks like he's doing this weird, like, JoJo point at the viewer. And I also think overall, maybe if I got closer to the figure itself, it would fill the frame a bit more, and I wish I experimented just with how that looks. Like, I don't know if that would look better, but I wish I tried it. But I am happy with the final product. I really like how the colors turned out, and the smoke looks very nice here. And I'm also just photographing a really cool looking figure. Like, this is just a cool looking kit bash. So I am happy with this, but I wish I experimented with it more. I just wish I put more time into shooting this shot. I think it could have turned out even better. So I'm not super, like, I'm not satisfied with it, you know, but it maybe one day I'll revisit something like this, and I know what to do better next time as well now. I definitely learned from shooting this one. I'm gonna try to recreate this art. Ignore the text. That's not important. I love Saber. I love Fate Stay Night, and I always thought this pose that she hits in like a lot of artwork was pretty cool. Okay, so to start, we're using Chogokin Saber. I set up the figure on this riser to give it some height, and then I framed the camera like this to get the shot I was going for. Then, I'm actually hopping back over to my computer. In Photoshop, I took the original background and I just removed Saber, and like, it's not perfect, like it's not a perfect removal, but it does the job it needs to for this photo. photo. Okay, I'm gonna make this segment partially just a tutorial on how to use your monitor as your background, or at least how I do it and like what my setup is. Okay, to start, I have a 65-inch TV that goes behind the setup. Then we have two monitors for the computer. The right one is for remote viewer from the camera. That is just gonna copy whatever's happening on the camera over to my computer so I can look at it on the right monitor. And then the left monitor is for Photoshop, and that's where I have the background open, and that's what gets duplicated onto the TV. What that allows me to do is it allows me to edit on the left monitor the background, and then I can see it update in real time on the remote viewer on the right monitor. I can move it around and position it perfectly. I can even edit it in Photoshop and immediately see it change in the photo that I'm currently shooting behind me. It's a little bit overcomplicated, and I have to run this very long HDMI cord across my entire studio, but like it works pretty well for what I do. And it just allows me a lot of freedom to use a screen background, almost like it's a physical prop that I can move around whenever. Very nice. Anyways, time to plug in this orange light that I haven't touched since like 2023. The idea is going to be to light Excalibur from below. I'm thinking I'll still have to mask it in Lightroom, but this looks kind of nice right here. Put a big ass light on the subject just to make it a lot brighter. Also adjust the aperture a bit so the background that we put so much effort into photoshopping will be more in focus. I also added this LED here to light the shot from the right side as well. And while we're talking about lighting, and this is the monitor tutorial, let's talk about when your lights reflect on your monitor and it creates these ugly spots. This is something that I felt was incredibly annoying when I first started out taking pictures, but with time and just doing more photos, I've gotten significantly better at lighting my photos without creating these type of reflections. It really is just a matter of making lighting setups that you can point away from the monitor. I'm sure there's other solutions, and I'd love to hear them. If you have other solutions in the comments, please tell me, but I genuinely just adapt around this. I recommend trying to pull your lights forward and away from the setup until the reflections go away like you see here. Keep in mind, this is literally a matter of perspective. Like in the most literal sense, at some angles there will be reflections no matter what. Just check on your camera screen regularly to make sure you adjust them out of frame. And with that, the shot is finished. Here it is fresh off the camera. I did end up editing it in Lightroom, just putting a mask on the blade to make it glow a lot more. But yeah, I'm very happy with how this recreation turned out. Shout out Tankless Pit, shout out Diego, I hope he gets his strokes in. Whenever it comes to recreating or referencing an art book photo, it's always pretty fun because those are usually very eye-catching visuals to look at, so it's fun to like copy that into my photography. I find that a lot of the photos I like taking are just like things that are fun to look at, and I kind of got back on my Fate kick this month, so there's gonna be a few more Fate shots in this video, I think. Look at this little fella. So I got Daima Kid Goku on a SAS stand on the camera. I have yet to see Daima yet, however, I have seen Poncheezy talk about Daima on his Instagram story, which is pretty much the next best thing. And I also really like both SHFs, the adult and the Kid Goku from Daima are both wonderful figures. I added this like shrine building thing that I have and some plants and stuff. It's time for the background. I found this really pretty pink sky on Google, and damn, my TV really wants me to watch The Last of Us. Like, I'm not watching this shit, dude. And we're looking good. By the way, he keeps falling off the stand because I decided to use a loose SAS stand that wasn't screwed in properly because I was trying to make my life as difficult as possible. I decorated the shot with some more just like random things, and it's lighting time. Always gotta use this big desk lamp, at least for my setup. I kind of find it essential for a lot of the photos that I do. Here's the full lighting setup, and yes, I am holding an LED in my hand as like a makeshift halo bar for this. And after a bit of picking and choosing as far as colors are concerned, here's what I came up with. I distinctly remember having a lot of fun color correcting this one and bringing out all the rich oranges and the pinks in this photo. Two things though. I wish the greens were more vibrant, and I also wish Goku took up more of the frame here, just because there's not really a lot of narrative to this photo aside from Goku jumping, and I think the photo could benefit from just more focus on that, on him just like jumping. If he took up more of the image here, I think it would be a better photo. But I don't want to crop it because I like the background. I just think he needs to be closer to the lens, that's all. Anyway, still a very fun photo, using colors I don't always use together. I want to do something similar with adult Daima Goku, but that'll be for next month. I have a whole shot planned out with that guy in my mind. As far as old Fate Stay Night designs go, I think Salter is probably my favorite. It's just really sleek, the mask is cool, I like how it adapts to normal Saber design while still being pretty different. Like, it's not just Saber wearing black, it's a bit more out there, which I think is cool. There's this one shot from the visual novel where she just has like so much aura, okay, and that's gonna be a very loose inspiration for this photo. I'm going back to my Canon just to use the wide lens here. It's funny because people ask me about my equipment and like what tripod do I use, and my tripod is a piece of shit that I just can't use for a lot of my ideas. It's just really not versatile. It's loose, it's fucking falling apart. I've used it for like 4 years straight, and it's a shitty one too at that. And for shots like this, I end up doing dumb shit. Like, look at this. What on earth was I doing when I made this? Anyway, I do like this composition quite a lot so far. And the cool thing about this is you can make like shapes out of your photo. So like with this shot, the idea is the figure and the dress and the sword help make this like triangle shape for my subject, and that takes up like the left part of the shot. And then with the empty space on the right, I can put the moon, and it's like you have this like half circle in the top corner. I'm not sure how much of a science there is to this stuff. I really am not an expert on this shit. But in my opinion, it looks nice to look at. When I look at it and I see these shapes, like they jump out to my mind, and I just think it looks good. Especially considering I spaced them out and having the empty space to balance it out. It looks nice. I think this composition is like satisfying to look at. One kind of downside to this lens is it doesn't have the greatest range I can focus at, so I gotta be very careful with getting my focus correct. Anyway, as far as the actual making of this shot, it was kind of miserable. I couldn't get the aesthetics to work no matter what I did. I tried going for super vibrant colors, and that didn't really look great. I even tried the smoke machine, because usually that just adds free aura to my photo, and that didn't even really work. Here's what I initially came up with, and like, I don't hate this shot, right? I think it looks good, but it's not what I'm looking for. I sent this to a couple people, and they told me to post it. Like, the feedback I got on this was pretty positive, but I don't know, maybe I'm just too dumb for my own good, because I went back and reworked it into something that is probably worse, but I like it more. It fits my vision a bit more. Anyway, before I show you the reworks that I made, here are some masks I used. One for this bush that was just a little bit too green, and also one for the background to make it pop more, and also one for just like the moon. And I noticed that you can see the eye underneath the mask here, so I decided to light that with a mask as well, just to make it brighter. But yeah, like I said, I don't hate this shot, but I like it more when I consider it a throwaway that I'm not going to use, because it just doesn't match what I was going for. I don't think I accomplished my goal here, if that makes sense. Like, I want to go back and keep reworking it. I did eventually end up putting this in like a throwaway shot post though, so it is released, it's not in the vault. Anyways, going back to change some things, first of all, I want this shot to be more warm, kinda more akin to the VN art from earlier. A lot of harsh lighting and some smoke, and a much simpler setup. I think removing a lot of the factors here made it easier to work with this photo and just try new things. I know I mentioned that I was trying to make it warmer, but somehow when I took it out the camera here, it ended up being blue again. I don't know how I ended up with this result, but yeah, here's what it looks like after editing. Like, usually I'll put the edits on screen here, but just keep in mind I bumped the clarity up in Photoshop when I denoised it. Yes, even though this shot is hella grainy, I did attempt to denoise the grain. Like, I did try. Yeah, okay, technically speaking, this shot is not as good as the other one I made, which is why I later posted the original one in a separate, like, thing, so people can still look at that one, but I just think the retake is significantly better. It's way more interesting. Like, the initial take of this one, the one that ended up in the throwaway shot post, that one is a photo, I feel like I've done it a million times. There's nothing unique about it, nothing new, nothing fresh, it's just boring. I wanted something rough and raw and just badass looking, and like, that's exactly what this is. Even look at this other take of it I have where the smoke is covering the arm. Like, it's just so fucking cool, dude. I don't know, aura and hype moments over derivative and boring moments. Okay? All of the people I asked about it told me that the original one looked better and that the second one did not look as good as the original. Like, the retake was just not as good. It's what people were telling me. One day I want to revisit that initial VN artwork and make something closer to that, and then also do this art of normal Saber, then take both of those and put them in one post. But this photo I took today is a very different type of shot, and for now, I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. So my guy Rayashi 2099, the greatest photographer slash Persona 3 player of all time, he sent me a DM on Instagram, was like, yo, do you want to do this Rei Ayanami photo collab thing? And I was like, hell yeah, that sounds fun. And then it hit me, I was like, you know, Evangelion is pretty cool. Let me hit up my friend Diego, Super Saiyan 63, you know, this guy. He also likes Evangelion, like a lot. So I got him in on the collab and I made a group chat with the three of us and this fucking guy, whoever this is. The idea is that each of us were to do one photo of Rei for this collab post.
You know, it's kind of awkward because I shot this photo for March 30th for a collab because it was Rei Ayanami's birthday, that was the idea. But we ended up posting it in April, and now it's in the April recap. And to make matters a little bit worse, this video was supposed to go up in May, but I'm late re-recording this because my files got corrupted. So I'm actually recording this in June. So this photo is 3 months old.
I wanted to go for something very white and desaturated, so I got this foam background I had. I posed Rei up with the little music player. This is from the Figma. Honestly, it's a pretty cool accessory. I set this up in the camera. I did one out of focus and one in focus and just kind of erased parts in Photoshop after overlaying them to create this really soft look that I was going for. I also went back and did another shot. I wanted to do a portrait as a reference to that one painting of Lucifer that's also like the reference in Star Wars. You've probably seen this image before. I honestly just think it's a neat visual, and I did it using this 28mm macro lens, which I'll put on screen now. This lens is like an actual cheat code, by the way. Like anything you photograph with it just looks amazing. It has this really good close-up focus and it blurs the background really cleanly. It's a very good lens. It feels very defeating to use because I might spend hours on a really complicated shot and it gets the same reception that like a photo that took me 5 minutes to make gets, and it's like, not that I do it for the reception at all, but like it's just kind of like, damn, it really is that easy. Anyways, I ended up using that portrait shot that I took for the collab post. Then Diego and Rei sent me theirs, and I made these borders for the shots so they would all match. Here's the font I used, by the way. And I'm also stealing this idea from this one photographer on Instagram, who I'll put on screen now. They have these really cool borders on all their shots that have their camera settings. I think that is so cool. It's like deconstructing the image. That, to me, that is just so sick. So I low-key bit that idea just a little bit, but I put it in the Evangelion font and made it like a title card. I'm not a thief, I'm just inspired, you know? Honestly, I like my photo, but I like how the other two's photos turned out more. Like Rei's is this really clean shot with like the scythe and the city in the background. It's a very good setup. And then Diego's is so sick as well. It's like this sick visual with like a silhouette with like the red eye and Unit Zero in the background. I feel like I could see this as like an astrophysics cover art or something. Overall, go follow these guys. They're both very skilled photographers and I had a ton of fun working on this collab with them. And also I did use that other shot that I took. I put it in like a throwaway shots post, so it didn't just rot on my hard drive forever. This next shot was definitely a learning experience, because sometimes, you know, your first idea is not always your best idea. And, you know, also sometimes, your first 8 ideas aren't always your best idea. So to start, I got Figma Thorfinn here lying on the ground. I decided to make things absurd, so I went and got my 300mm lens, and I aimed everything down on the ground like this. And this setup is kind of ridiculous. I'll be completely real though, I could not get this to work. I tried so many different things with lighting, and I even sprinkled these little leaves everywhere, and I had a bunch of little diorama parts and things. I couldn't turn this into a product that I was happy with. I just was making nothing. I was here for like an hour, just like rolling a boulder up the hill. And that's when it hit me. It's a beautiful day outside, and I'm here on my floor playing with dolls. So I went outside, and here's the setup with the camera out in the woods. It's a very nice day out. I even got to use the leaves, and honestly, here's the final product. It looks kind of great. This is way better than whatever I was cooking inside. The ground is my diorama. The sun is my LED light. Very minimal touch-ups in Lightroom, but honestly, that wasn't even necessary. Like, I think the initial product out of the camera was just fine as is. I was just adding a bit of spice to it, you know? It's kind of just a very minimal photo in every regard, and to me, that's really nice, because you, the viewer, are probably watching this on a phone with a better camera than what I started out taking pictures on, and you can walk outside right now and take a photo just like this one. I love myself some really complicated photos and setups, but not everything needs to be that detailed. You don't need a bunch of dioramas, you don't need a monitor in the background, you don't need like 5 different lenses and 2 cameras. You don't need any of this shit to start taking photos. Everybody starts somewhere. And some people have whole pages of just outside photos or photos on their kitchen countertop. A lot of people just genuinely use what they have and they take awesome photos. I can't stress this enough. Don't limit yourself based on not having a lot of stuff or time to take photos. I used to make excuses about things I wanted to do so I wouldn't have to practice them. Did you know I used to play piano? But I got bad at it because I always had an excuse for why I didn't practice. Same with drawing, karate, video editing, learning to speak Spanish. All things I never really got as good as I could have gotten at because I never practiced. Yeah, sure, there are genuine circumstances where someone doesn't have the time or resources to practice taking photos. I acknowledge that. But I would tell myself stuff like, I need to wait until I can afford a camera or until I have more time. But I had a shitty Android phone camera right there, and taking a photo on my desk or outside takes like 15 minutes tops. I was just making excuses, just like with the piano. If you want to get good at something, don't sell yourself short and say there's all these limits preventing you from trying to do the things you want to do. The only method to actually get into this stuff is to just practice. And also something that people don't talk about enough is that working under limitations allows you to experiment with what you currently have at your disposal. Use those limitations as the framework for your style. Everybody has a style to their photos, and it's based on the tools at their disposal. For example, let's say your phone camera only really takes good photos in dim lighting. Get good at low light shots. I say all of this to get across the idea, if you want to get started at anything, start now. Start today with what you have, and you can figure out the rest later. Just go make something, okay? Or don't, I guess. Like, I'm not your dad. I can't make you go take photos, but like, wouldn't it be really cool if you did? Like, I don't know. I think that would be pretty cool personally. I think you should go do it.
That's all I got. I'm gonna try to make these kind of like a monthly thing, like a big video every month, just breaking down a bunch of shots I took. So subscribe if you want to see that. Follow me on Instagram if you want to see the stuff I've made this past half decade or what I'm working on right now. All my photos are on there. I'm also on Twitter, but nobody in this community even uses Twitter, so who cares? Fuck it, here's my MFC that I don't touch. Go check me out on there. But yeah, that's everything. I'll see you guys next month.